actor who really brought, realness to television.
They thought it was just another Hollywood rumor, a whisper in the shadows. But when Ice Cube walked onto that stage, eyes dark with fury and heart heavy with truth, the room fell silent. Not because of who he was, but because of what he was about to say. This wasn't a diss track. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was a reckoning. He knew too much. Cube said into the mic, voice steady but shaking with something deeper: grief, rage, regret, and they made sure he stayed quiet. The name he said next, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Fans froze. Headlines stalled. Cameras flickered. Because nobody expected this. Not from Cube. And not about Malcolm, the beloved TV son, the quiet giant. The man who had vanished from the spotlight only to be buried under vague headlines and empty condolences. But Cube had seen the truth. And now he was ready to burn the lies to the ground. What followed wasn't just an accusation, it was an unraveling, a decades-long chain of betrayals, cover-ups, and warnings that went unheard. And at the center of it all, one man. Bill Cosby. And Cube, he was ready to name names. Under the soft glow of Hollywood lights, a silence was building. Not the kind you hear at a red carpet event or backstage before a performance, but the kind that creeps in when something terrible is about to be exposed. And at the center of it stood Ice Cube, eyes cold, voice steady, holding a truth that threatened to rip open one of Black Hollywood's most carefully curated legacies. He wasn't here to play nice. He wasn't here for fame. He was here for Malcolm-Jamal Warner. The kid who won hearts as Theo on The Cosby Show had grown into a man many admired. He was more than just an actor. He was thoughtful, private, sometimes withdrawn, but always respectful. He stayed away from scandals, stayed grounded in a world where many lost themselves. But now, he was gone, and Ice Cube was saying it wasn't an accident, it wasn't fate, it was murder. And not just by anyone. Cube was pointing the finger straight at Bill Cosby. People gasped when Cube first said it, not just because of the accusation, but because of who it came from. Ice Cube, known for never backing down, for calling out the industry's deepest secrets, wasn't just stirring the pot, he was ready to shatter it. Malcolm knew too much. He said during a podcast taping that was mysteriously pulled within hours, he was about to speak, and they couldn't let that happen. But let's rewind the clock a little. Before the whispers, before the conspiracies, there were signs. Malcolm had started changing. Not dramatically, but subtly. He looked over his shoulder more often. He paused before speaking, like he was measuring every word. He turned down projects that he once would have jumped at. Friends noticed, but didn't ask. Maybe they were afraid of the answers, or maybe they already knew. One of those friends was Jaleel White, the actor known for playing Steve Urkel. He and Malcolm weren't just colleagues, they were close. He was like a brother, Jaleel had said once in an old interview. And yet, when news of Malcolm's sudden death spread, Jaleel's Instagram post was cryptic. Haunted, he warned me. I didn't listen. Now I see. No further explanation. No follow-up. Just silence. Fans were confused. Wasn't Malcolm healthy? Wasn't he working on a new project just weeks before? Yes, he was. A memoir, to be exact. One that insiders say would have blown the lid off the facade that was The Cosby Show. Not just the allegations against Bill Cosby that the world already knew, but details about what went on during filming, who knew what, and more importantly, who helped cover it all up. The manuscript never saw the light of day, not even a leak. It vanished just like Malcolm. Now here's where things start getting darker. Sources close to Ice Cube say that Malcolm had reached out to him in the weeks before he died. Not publicly, privately. They're watching me, he allegedly told Cube. They don't want this book out. At first, Cube thought maybe Malcolm was just paranoid. Maybe the pressure was getting to him. But then the call stopped, the text stopped, and then one morning, the news hit the internet. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was dead. No warning, no explanation. Just gone. Cube didn't cry, not publicly. He went quiet. He started digging, and what he found, he claims, made him sick. Media silence, sealed hospital reports, no autopsy results released, and then nothing. Hollywood moved on, but Cube did in single quotes T. According to one unnamed source, Cube contacted several of Malcolm's old colleagues, directors, producers, assistants. One of them allegedly told him about a private meeting held on The Cosby Show said back in the early 90s. Malcolm had walked in on a conversation between Cosby and a network executive. Something about keeping things in-house. Something about protecting the brand. No one gave details, but Malcolm never forgot that meeting. And when the allegations against Cosby resurfaced decades later, that memory became more than just an uncomfortable moment. It became motive. But motive wasn't enough. Cube needed proof. And that's when another piece of the puzzle dropped. A woman who claimed to be a former assistant on The Cosby Show reached out anonymously. Her voice trembling, she described a conversation she overheard in 2017. Long after the show had ended, Cosby was upset, angry, pacing. "He's gonna ruin everything," he allegedly said. "He opens his mouth. We're finished." She didn't know who he was talking about then. Now, she was certain it was Malcolm. The woman refused to go on record. "I'm scared," she said. "They're still watching." And Cube, he didn't stop. He found out that Malcolm's memoir wasn't just talk. A draft had been uploaded to a cloud server under a fake name. Cube got access. He wouldn't say how. But what he read, according to sources, made his blood run cold. Emails, names, private recordings, things that, if released, could burn down careers, networks, maybe even bring criminal charges. And at the center of it all was Cosby, not just as a predator, but as a puppeteer. A man with connections in law enforcement, media, and politics. A man who allegedly used those connections to keep his secrets buried no matter the cost. Malcolm was gonna tell the truth, Cube said in a leaked audio clip. And they couldn't let that happen. This wasn't just Hollywood drama anymore. It was war. Cube had a choice. Stay silent and stay safe, or speak and risk everything. He chose the latter. And with that choice, he lit a fuse that's still burning. Rumors are spreading, insiders are whispering, and fans, they're demanding answers. But before Cube could go public with everything he knew, something else happened. Something no one expected. A second voice emerged, this time from inside the Cosby family itself. And that's where things really start to spiral. The second voice didn't come from an old co-star or a distant cousin. It came from someone far closer to the center, Camille's niece, a woman who had spent years on the fringes of the Cosby family, often overlooked, often silenced. She'd been there during the heyday, present at family gatherings, quiet at production dinners. And now, she was speaking up, anonymously. Yes, but her words cut deeper than most. They knew what Malcolm was doing, she said in a trembling voice on a leaked call, and they knew what they had to do to stop him. Ice Cube was already neck deep in this mess, but this confirmed his worst fears. The silence around Malcolm's death wasn't just industry politics. It was deliberate, calculated, rehearsed, and Cube believed it went all the way to the top. The niece alleged that Malcolm had reached out to her just weeks before he died. He sounded anxious, restless, but determined. He said he had one last thing to finish, she recalled, and then he was walking away. He wanted to leave Hollywood for good. He wasn't just trying to disappear, he was trying to escape. The pressures, the secrets, the shadows. Cube, meanwhile, had started making calls of his own. Quiet ones, off-the-record ones. He reached out to an independent investigator he trusted, a man who'd helped dig up corruption in law, police scandals, and political cover-ups. The investigator, who we'll call Jay, looked into Malcolm's death, and what he found disturbed even him. First red flag, the death certificate listed natural causes, but no full autopsy was ever publicly filed. Second, the hospital that treated Malcolm before his death had a sealed file attached to his name, no access, not even to family without a court order. And third, according to insider logs, there was a 24-minute window where Malcolm's personal phone was accessed after his time of death. Text threads deleted, voice memos gone. That's not just suspicious, Cube allegedly said to Jay. That's a cleanup. It was all starting to form a pattern. The silence, the erasure, the suddenness. But why now? Why was Malcolm ready to speak out after so long? What was the final straw? Final straw. Cube's team believes it had to do with a conversation Malcolm had with another former Cosby Show actor, a woman who's kept her name out of the press but confirmed privately that she and Malcolm met weeks before his death. She said Malcolm showed her a notebook. Inside were scribbled names, dates, events. He called it his fire insurance. She whispered. He said if anything ever happened to him, that notebook would make sure they didn't get away with it. But the notebook has never been found. Meanwhile, Ice Cube was done staying quiet. He started dropping hints in interviews, subtle things. Hollywood's a dangerous place for truth-tellers, he said on one podcast. People think it's glitz and glamour, but it's built on silence and fear. When asked who he meant, Cube just smiled and said, they know who they are behind the scenes. Cube's close friends began to worry. Suddenly, people were showing up at his recording studio unannounced. Strange cars parked outside his home. Anonymous messages warning him to leave the past buried. It was textbook intimidation. But Cube, he leaned in harder. I already lost a brother. He told one confidant, I'm not letting them bury the truth too. As the pressure mounted, Cube made a decision. He reached out to Malcolm's mother, the woman who had remained largely silent since her son's passing. Fans had begged her for answers, but she never spoke. Until now. What Cube recorded during that visit would leave even skeptics shaken. Malcolm single quotes as mother, eyes red from years of grief, whispered one line that haunted Cube. They took my baby. She said Malcolm had told her he was working on something. That might upset a lot of powerful people. He didn't give details. He just said, if anything happens to me, don't believe what they say. And then he was gone. Cube played that recording during a private meeting with a group of investigative journalists. But not a single outlet published the story. Some cited legal concerns. Others claimed lack of hard evidence. But Cube believed. They were scared of lawsuits, scared of losing access, scared of becoming targets themselves. So Cube took matters into his own hands. He started working on a documentary, not a flashy Hollywood production, but a raw, independent expose that would lay everything bare. Interviews, voice memos, timelines, even footage from private security cameras. But just as the project was gaining momentum, everything stopped. The lead editor on the documentary quit suddenly, said he felt unsafe. The footage Cube had uploaded to the cloud vanished overnight, and a hard drive containing hours of audio and video went missing from his studio. They're scrubbing it, Cube said. They're trying to erase him, but he wasn't done. Because just when it looked like the story would disappear forever, another crack appeared in the wall of silence. An old friend of Malcolm's, a fellow actor and director, stepped forward with something Cube never expected, a voicemail, dated 3 days before Malcolm died. In it, Malcolm's voice was shaky but clear. They're watching me, he said. I know it. I tried to be quiet, but I can't anymore. If anything happens to me, tell Cube to look in the box. The box. Cube immediately flew to Malcolm's last known residence. With the family's permission, he searched the place, and in a closet, behind a stack of untouched scripts, he found it. A small, locked metal case. Inside were documents, photographs, a flash drive, and one printed note. If you're reading this, they failed. And what was on that drive? We'll get to that, because this is the part that made even Cube stop breathing. The part where fiction started to blur with something that felt terrifyingly real. Inside that metal box was a kind of evidence that doesn't just make headlines, it shatters them. Cube plugged the flash drive into a secure offline laptop. What he saw left him in stunned silence for nearly an hour. When he emerged, his expression was unreadable, but his eyes were raging. Malcolm hadn't just collected receipts, he had compiled an entire dossier. The drive contained folders labeled with initials, video clips, audio recordings, scanned pages of signed contracts, and then there was one folder labeled BC inside, a timeline. From the late 80s to 2017, names, dates, meetings, every single one tied back to Bill Cosby. One video clip, time-stamped 2006, showed Malcolm sitting alone in a dressing room. He looked exhausted. His voice cracked as he spoke into the camera. I stayed quiet for too long. I thought it would go away, but it won't. Not until someone speaks. He then named 3 producers, 2 lawyers, and 1 studio executive, all people still active in Hollywood today, according to Cube. That one clip alone was enough to implicate not just Cosby, but an entire ring of enablers who, for decades, kept his secrets buried. But the real shock came from the audio files. In one, Malcolm can be heard on a phone call with an unidentified man. The voice on the other end is distorted, but firm. You don't want to do this. There are people who won't let it happen. Malcolm replied, they've already done worse. What do I have to lose? The line went quiet. Then a chilling response, you're alive. Cube was furious. He knew they were coming. He whispered to his editor. He tried to warn us. Meanwhile, the media stayed silent. Cube sent snippets to multiple platforms. No one responded. No one published, in fact. One outlet returned his message with a single line. This is above our clearance level. That was all Cube needed to hear. This wasn't just about one man's legacy anymore. This was about the system protecting him. So Cube decided to go rogue. He reached out to independent creators, podcast hosts, and underground media circles. He started dropping hints, cryptic lines in interviews, lyrics in unreleased tracks, tweets that read like codes, and soon, people started paying attention. What happened to Malcolm? Trended for nearly 24 hours before vanishing from Twitter's Explore tab without explanation. Reddit threads were mysteriously locked. YouTube videos about the case were demonetized. Cube's own accounts experienced sudden shadow bans. The digital blackout was real and it was spreading. But Cube wasn't alone anymore. Fans, truth seekers, even other celebrities started speaking up, some cautiously, others boldly. Jaleel White went live on Instagram with tears in his eyes. I can't stay silent anymore, he said. Malcolm warned me. I didn't understand then. Now I do. Actress Kishia Knight Pulliam posted a black square with the caption, Justice for Malcolm. We know. It didn't take long before rumors started circulating that several cast and crew members from The Cosby Show were being contacted by legal teams ordered to stay silent or face consequences. But the fans weren't having it. Messages flooded forums and comment sections. People demanded answers, and Cube kept going. In a closed-door meeting with Malcolm's mother, Cube laid everything out: the flash drive, the voicemail, the folder labeled BC. And for the first time since her son's death, she spoke publicly. Her voice was soft but firm. I knew something was wrong the moment I got the call. They said it was natural, but I know my son. I know the fear in his voice when we last spoke. She recalled a dinner 2 weeks before he died. Malcolm was distracted, tense. He kept checking the door. When she asked what was wrong, he smiled and said, just thinking too loud. She didn't ask more. She wished she had. Cube leaned forward during that meeting and asked her one question. Do you want to go public? She nodded. He died for the truth. Someone needs to finish what he started, and so they did. Cube began assembling a private team: editors, journalists, legal experts, not bound by networks or studios, people who believed in the truth. The documentary was resurrected under a new name, Theo's Silence. The first trailer dropped online with no warning, black screen. Malcolm's voice, if anything happens to me, don't let them lie on my name. The internet exploded, millions of views in hours, but just as fast, it was gone. The trailer was pulled from YouTube, flagged for graphic content. Cube appealed, denied. Then came the email cease and desist, legal threats, accusations of defamation. But Cube didn't blink. He uploaded the trailer to a decentralized platform. Once again, views soared. Once again, takedowns followed. But this time, people had saved it. Mirrors popped up everywhere, and now the story was out. But there was still one piece left. One that Cube had been holding back. The final voicemail, Malcolm's voice, recorded just a day before his death. Tell them I forgive them, even if they can't forgive themselves, but don't let them erase me. That was the last anyone heard from Malcolm-Jamal Warner. The final chapter of this story wasn't written in silence, it was carved in fire, because now the world was listening, and Cube, he was just getting started. But the real question was how many others were still too scared to speak, and how far would the machine go to keep the rest buried? And that's exactly where Part 4 begins. As the smoke from the digital war thickened, Ice Cube found himself in a new kind of spotlight, not the Hollywood red carpet glow, but the searing light of truth seekers, conspiracy theorists, and furious fans demanding accountability. The deeper he went, the more people started whispering in the shadows. People who had kept quiet for decades. People who knew the rules. and people who had everything to lose if the truth came out. One of them was a former network executive. He didn't give a name, only a voice. Distorted, distant, scared. Malcolm was a problem, he said in a private audio recording sent to Cube's encrypted email, not because he did anything wrong, but because he remembered everything, and he wrote it all down. This executive, let's call him M, claimed he was present during a closed-door meeting between Cosby's legal team and several high-level television figures. This wasn't in the 90s. This was recent, months before Malcolm's death. They knew Malcolm had started writing again. They were tracking him. One even joked that if Theo turns into a prophet, it's time to crucify him. Cube sat in silence when he played that recording. He was no stranger to cold-hearted industry games, but this wasn't a game. This was a system, a machine that had silenced people for generations. And now, it had taken someone Cube considered family. The final chapter of Malcolm's story wasn't just unfolding, it was unraveling everything around it. In the days that followed the leaked trailer for Theo's silence, several other former Cosby Show cast and crew members were reported to have received legal warnings. Some went quiet. Others deleted their social media altogether. But one person refused to back down, an actress who had played a minor recurring character on the show, long forgotten by the mainstream, but remembered by fans. Her name was Sharon Taylor, and she came armed with her own story. In a surprise live stream, she appeared, raw and unscripted. I was 19 when I worked on that set, she began, and I saw things I shouldn't have seen, things I still have nightmares about. She described late-night meetings, Cosby holding whispered conversations with producers, lawyers, even visiting guests from New York and Washington. One of those guests, she claimed, now sits on the board of a major streaming platform. Another works in politics. We were told never to speak of what we saw, she said. Malcolm, he wasn't just a co-star. He tried to protect us. When someone said something inappropriate to me, he pulled me aside. He said, "Don't let this place swallow you." He knew what it was. Even then, the chat exploded. Fans begged for more, and then Sharon dropped her bomb. Malcolm left me something, an envelope sealed. He gave it to me the week before he died. Ice Cube nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the clip. He reached out to Sharon immediately. Within a day, they met. The envelope was old, sealed with wax, and inside, a single memory card. Cube didn't wait. He plugged it into his offline system. What he found wasn't shocking, it was devastating. A 20-minute video diary, Malcolm, alone, in what appeared to be a hotel room, his eyes tired, his voice calm. "If you're watching this," he said, "I probably didn't make it." He spoke of everything, the fear, the manipulation. How he had been offered money to stay silent. They said I could have a second chance. A show, a deal. Just stop digging. But I couldn't, and then he looked straight into the camera. To Cube, "Thank you. If you're still fighting, keep going. Don't let my name fade. Don't let the kids watching think I just gave up." I didn't. When Cube finished watching, he didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, all he said was, "We're releasing this against every warning, every threat, every takedown attempt." Cube uploaded the video. This time, he didn't put it on YouTube. He didn't trust them. He put it on an encrypted peer-to-peer platform, shared only through private links. Within minutes, it spread like wildfire. People ripped it, mirrored it, translated it into different languages. It couldn't be stopped. And then something strange happened. Cube started receiving messages. Not threats this time, apologies. Quiet, hesitant messages from people in the industry who had once ghosted him. People who had laughed at the idea of a Cosby cover-up. Now they were scared. Not of Cube, but of what else Malcolm had left behind. Because, according to one source, that wasn't the